kick off and get started. Sal, tell everybody what's today. What's today about?
Sales.
What do you mean by that?
Improve our sales techniques and discuss what we do, how to get customers involved with us.
So on that note, thanks for volunteering to kick us off, Sal, by the way. On that note, Sal, keep us going here. In this area, what would you say is one of your, I don't want to say struggles, but the weaker link?
I'm not sure.
You're
Not
just
sure.
that good.
Yeah, no, I'm not that good. I guess the struggle would be to go from being empathetic with the client to talking business.
Okay.
And transitional phrases, kind of like, so let's talk about what you want to do with this. What do you want to get out of this?
Okay.
You know, starting to say those kinds of things.
Victor, what do you think is your weakest link in this department?
I think my weakest link is getting the client to commit to commit to a decision. A lot of them are up in the air. They're indecisive. So I try, but I can't get them to say yes or no. And then those that already know, right? So the weakest part is getting the ones that are thinking about it, getting them over the hump to the yes.
Okay. I'm just going around the horn. Liz, what would you say your weakest link is? You have to hit on mute first.
I had to find my mouse. Okay, so it's just, even in the beginning, especially, it's getting them to trust you. And, because right off the bat, it's just understanding there's a lot of people out there doing it. I mean, there's billboard after billboard, and there's television commercial and this, and to not think that we're not sincere or honest in truly helping them and not taking advantage, because everybody's like, oh, they're just going to take advantage of you. So I think that is just really getting that know, like, and trust in there and having them understand that.
Okay. The screen just moved around on me. So, John, you're up next.
I think it's just the consistent message over time. Just keeping consistent.
Okay. Bob,
Yep.
What do you say?
I mean, it's like a combination of all that stuff, probably objections. And on top of that, like Sal said, getting them to commit. It's like, well, I'm not really ready. Well, here's the thing. I don't want to force you, but I need to force you, type of thing.
Okay. Chris.
For me, it's establishing that form of position. What I mean by that is not so much selling them, but convincing them in a way that I'm in a position that they actually need what I have to offer.
Okay. Who's left?
Closing. That's probably the right word. Closing, right?
Yeah. Gene, what would you say? Gene looks frozen on my end, so maybe. Eileen, I see you just jumped on. The question is, what would you say is the weakest link for you in the sales department of your business or acquisition side of your business? The selling aspect.
Oh, I would say probably the offer, what the offer will be.
Say that again.
The offer itself.
Offer. Got it. Okay.
Sorry, that's Southern.
No, you're good. How many of you guys
Sean.
feel like?
Sean, can you come back to me? I got
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was frozen. So for me, ultimately, I mean, sales is ultimately about you controlling the conversation and driving it to where you want it to get to. So my biggest struggle basically is structuring it, like going from A to B or A to Z, putting the, I guess, rapport building and everything aside, really structuring the sales conversation towards closing. That's my biggest thing.
So putting the structure together, getting it to closing.
Correct.
I'm gonna move this over here so I can actually see all of you at the same time. Somebody give me a thumbs up. I see that you can see the a diagram, yeah? How many of you guys feel like you actually have a pretty solid sales system? Meaning you actually know what your system is, you've got a process, it's pretty dialed in, you know, kind of from step 1 to step 20, what needs to happen to take somebody through this journey with you. How many of you feel like you got one that's about 80% there?
Yeah.
50%?
Maybe 70.
Maybe 70? Okay, Gene's the only one. Anybody around that 50, 60% mark? Like half the time I feel like I do pretty good. The other half of the time, I don't even know what the heck I just did with them.
Yeah, I'd probably say 50.
Okay. Anybody have no clue? Like I just freaking wing it every time. Bob? Thanks for being honest. Why is it important? Why would we want to actually have a sales system? Remember, when I say sales in real estate, we're not talking the back end. We're not talking about when I list a property and sell it. We're talking about the acquisition, the front end. When I'm trying to sell my service, why is it important to have a sales system? Chris, what do you think?
That way it could be structured from step 1, step 2, step 3, so it's a smooth flow.
Absolutely. Sal, what else do you think? Why is it important?
Sorry, okay, here we go. I think it's important to have the sales system so that you don't miss something. You know exactly what you're trying to say, and you don't leave out a certain item, a certain advantage or benefit that your business can bring to them. Because there's a lot of times where you'll hang up the phone and say, oh, I forgot to say this, and oh, I forgot to say that.
Okay. John May, what do you think?
It goes back to consistency and how you talk to that person the same over and over and over. You get more confidence.
Right, repeatable, consistent.
Even though I don't do this, I think that if you were going to get a VA or something like that, you would already have your system set up and you could just move that over to your help.
We can train others quickly, right? Liz, why else do you think it's important to have a sales system?
Well, it's funny because Maria and I literally just had this conversation. Like, I know she had to answer some stuff. We just got off the phone or got off a call talking about this because we don't have that the right way. And so it's frustrating. We had a wholesale deal land in our lap, and it was a pocket listing, but we didn't have the whole system and structure set up. And we were commenting back and forth like, oh my God, who's going to do this and what's going to happen there? And so it's frustrating then. So why not, if we don't have it, then we're spinning wheels. We're not getting the right stuff done. And are we dropping the ball? It's just frustrating.
About customer experience. If you were frustrated, what do you think they were feeling? How many of you guys have ever signed up for a service, did something, heck, gone and bought a car, and if that process was all over the place, all of a sudden the car salesman's running left and right, they don't really know what's going on. They tell you to sit here for a few seconds, and then 20 minutes later they finally come back, and that gets annoying, right?
Lack of confidence in what you're doing. Confidence
in you. Right? They could lose it really quick if we don't have a system, right? So as I went around and I asked, what do you guys think is kind of your weakest point? A lot of times our weak points come out because we don't have a pretty dialed in system. Does that make sense? They're weak because we're not really sure, what do I normally do at this point? Or what would I, on a consistent basis, what would I do here when I get to this? Because you're just kind of, I'm going to call it the Bob model. You're just winging it. Just kind of doing whatever the wind's telling you to do that particular day. And when I look at a sales system, the whole job of the sales cycle here, or the sales system in this case, is to move somebody through it effortlessly, clean, smooth, very methodical, very systematic. Right? And when we deviate from that system, once we have it in place, once we kind of know what each component is, once we know what we want in each one of these areas, we're going to talk what the areas are in a second. If we deviate from it, do we know it immediately? Absolutely. It creates headache. Point in case. We've got a pretty dialed in, and when I say we, I'm talking about I run the sales side for REI Toolbox, TRC, and everything that we do, Lead Vault, all that. I've got a very dialed in system. And when Roger steps into it and operates in the system that I've created, it goes smooth, everything's fine. Sean hardly has to get involved because the system's built. It's easy to step into. Roger's been trained on it, so on and so forth, right? The second Roger steps out of that system, what do you think happens?
Chaos. It doesn't work.
Chaos.
None of the
Confusion.
lines connect. Yeah.
I get Discord messages at 8:30 a.m. while I'm on the third hole today that says, hey, can you jump on a Zoom call? I'm trying to get somebody through this process and get them onboarded, and I'm running into some issues. And what was when I finally talked to him, what was the direct result or cause of those problems? He didn't follow the system. He didn't follow what we had put in place that we know works, right? Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You guys have heard me say this before. Marketing, sales, alignment. Who remembers me talking about this before? Marketing and sales alignment. John, I saw your hand first. What do I mean by sales and marketing alignment?
It's where what you're saying, how the process goes straight from marketing and sales, and you can't tell a difference when it's handed off to like your acquisitions or back to closing. There's no real issue there. So everybody knows, and everything flows smoothly and there's no issues.
Yeah. Basically, in a nutshell, sales knows what marketing's doing, marketing knows what sales is doing. And you're like, okay, Sean, that's great, but I'm a one-man band, a two-man operation, something like that. I am sales, I am marketing. Cool. There's also this concept that not just human to human, department to department needs to know what's going on, but your marketing needs to support the sales side, and your sales side needs to also support the marketing side. Sal, you used to be in medical sales, correct?
Yes.
How frequently would you be out on a sales call, let's say, and have zero clue what any of the marketing materials were that they may or may not have received prior to you getting there? Because maybe you thought they were supposed to get it, or you had no idea that they even were getting these things.
Maybe 10% of the time. But when it does happen, it's very frustrating.
Right. So 90% of the time, because there was really good synergy between sales and marketing, it made your job as the sales individual a lot what?
A lot smoother.
Smoother, easier. You already kind of knew what the next thing to say was, right?
Well, I also had confidence that what I was saying was up to date and accurate, and I had the support data.
And they might have already seen some of this stuff, right? Or you can lean back on it because you know that it's there. You're not going to say, hey, go check this out, and then question, did the marketing team even put that out there? Or is that even something that we're doing anymore, right?
Right.
So before we can start to break down what our sales system looks like, I want to really quickly just hit on what is the point of our marketing? What is the point of marketing? What is the job of marketing?
To zero in on your avatar.
And that's what we try to do with it, but what's its job? Like, what is
Open the
whole-
door.
Awareness,
Say that again.
awareness.
Awareness. Sal, what'd you say?
Open the door.
Open up a door. John?
To let them know that you're here.
All of this is correct. Yes, Bob, we use our marketing and we want to hone in on our avatar, but the whole job of it is nothing more than to create awareness, get discussion going, open up this flow, or really set the stage for our sales side to come in. So when we break down, if we were to actually go to like marketing 101, there's 3 key components of marketing. And it's funny how the couple parts of the components of marketing are also a big aspect of sales. Who can tell me what the 3 major components of marketing are? I've talked about this in the past. Do we need some help? We got who, which we call this market. We got our what, which is what we call our message. And we've got our how, which is what we call our media. Market, this one right here, this goes to exactly what Bob was just saying. Who is the avatar, right? Who is the avatar? Message, this is all around what is it that we need to say? What is it that we are trying to position? If my sales process is all over the place, it makes it extremely difficult to market with a message because I'm not really sure what the message, what am I trying to get them to do from my message? What's the next step? How do they get started into my sales system? Does that make sense? Quick thumbs up. And then the how, this is media. How are we going to deliver that marketing message? And I'm not going to break down all the different medias that are out there. We talk a lot about this, but at the end of the day, it's just how am I going to deliver that? Is it through text, cold calls, direct mail? What is it? Is it website stuff, SEO? Is it PPC ads? Is it social media? Like, what is the media that I'm going to use? And when we understand that, we can really start to put together our sales system, because the very first stage in our sales system, who wants to take a stab? What do you think the very first component? We're going to break this our sales systems down into 3 simple components. What do you think the first component is?
Know your product.
I agree with it, but that's not the correct one.
Damn you, man.
What was the question again?
What do you think the first of the 3 major components of your sales system would be?
Your market?
Well,
Elaborate,
fishing.
Eileen. You're right. It's this right here. It's our market. But what do I mean by market when I talk in the sales side? First stage is
Usually-
prospecting. This is literally where marketing and sales overlap.
Yeah, because don't you have to be marketing to the people who you are looking for? If you're marketing to somebody else, then, or you're not marketing the right who, then. you're
Remember, marketing is just this. Marketing is who am I doing this to? What am I going to say and how am I going to say it to them? Sales is actually prospecting. Finding, oops. I gotta get that back inside there. I drew the, there we go.
Bullseye.
The prospecting is trying to find the who. I identify the who when I sit down and think about my marketing material, my marketing collateral, my marketing plan, who it is that I'm going after, right? The sales side, the first phase of it, the job is to prospect. Go find them. Go to them. If you say, hey, Sean, I really want to take my business and I really want to focus in on helping distressed landlords that have 2 or more properties that are tired of dealing with the bureaucratic BS that's going on in my market right now, and they're ready to retire and leave this area, and that's exactly who I want to go after, then great. The first stage of your sales process is to prospect, is to go find them. We still tracking? Yes?
Yes.
So as we break down the prospecting side of the sales system, I start asking myself, to do prospecting, what do I need to have in place? How am I going to prospect? Well, the first thing that comes to mind, if I'm going to do some prospecting, if I'm going to go after this distressed landlord, 2 or more people or 2 or more properties, ready to retire, tired of bureaucratic BS, all that kind of crap, the very first thing that I need is a list. I need to get data. I need to get a list. I need to pull this in. The first part of my sales cycle, my sales process, is to get this list. The next piece of this is to really figure out what our plan is on the prospecting. What do I mean by plan? This is where our media from our marketing side comes into play, because that media is really the plan for prospecting. Is it going to be cold calling? Is it going to be cold text? Am I going to do direct mail? Am I going to do social media ads and target that list? What is my media? That's my plan. I'm going to do it against my list, and this is what's happening inside my prospecting phase. We still tracking here, yes? Now, could this get a little confusing? Could this get a little crazy? Could this get a little chaotic if we don't actually track some of this stuff? So what do you think the third component of my prospecting side is?
Your KPIs?
Mm,
I mean, I only say that because you're using tracking as a thing, but you got to know what's working, right?
yeah, KPIs come in if I'm talking about growing, scaling, right?
But don't you want to know which one of those you pulled your list, you're marketing to them, like what's working? Is that what you're talking about?
You have
Part of
to-
it would be that.
You
But
have
to
to
keep
me-
this clean and non-chaotic, John, go ahead.
I was going to say you have to measure it.
So what would be I don't want to say too much. I'm going to give this thing away. What is the next component that we need in place to help us on this prospecting side of our sales system?
CRM maybe?
There it is. What is a CRM at the end of the day?
Can't remember much.
Gene, what was that?
Just a database.
It's a
No, it's not
customer
just a
tracking
database.
system.
What is the job? What is a CRM?
It's a customer tracking system.
It's a customer or client management system. Well, if I'm actively prospecting, I'm actively going after a list. I know who these people are. I've got a game plan in place. I want to be able to track what's going on with that. That's the job of my CRM, is to make sure that those that fall off, those that don't want to continue, those that tell me to stop, those that tell me they're not interested, those that tell me they don't have any more properties, those that told me they've already sold their properties, they're already living in Florida on the beach. I don't want to continue to prospect against them, right? So the job of my CRM is to really keep my prospecting up to date. Remember, the whole point of the sales system is so that Sean can step out of it and Victor can step in and do what?
Pick up where you left off.
Pick up immediately where I left off, like nothing changed, right? Well, if I'm doing a bunch of prospecting and then I step away and I say, hey, Victor, tag, you're it, go. And I haven't been tracking, I haven't been doing anything, I've been keeping it updated inside of a good system, a good CRM system. Are you going to have any clue what to do, Victor? Who I've talked to, what's going on with them, what's the story with them, right? Not at all. Now the CRM becomes, it's almost one of these components that continues its way around, because the CRM is also going to be over here in this section. And in this section, let's see what you guys remember first. Bob, what's the second stage of the customer journey?
Engagement.
Thank you, Bob, AKA Sal.
Sorry.
Engagement. The second component of my sales system is really the engagement aspect. And the CRM, it's going to kind of loom its way over here, because once I get some engagement going, is this where the CRM really comes into play, from keeping things like notes about that particular opportunity or about that individual. Tracking history of emails or maybe text messages, these type of things, right? But once we get into the engagement side, there's a couple key components that we want to make sure that we have in place in this sales system to make sure it's repeatable, make sure it's easy to train on, make sure it's consistent and reliable. What do you think maybe one or two of these are? I want to hear some things from you guys. I don't want to give you all the answers just yet.
Nurture and follow up.
Bing, right off the bat. Nurture, follow up. Once they start engaging with us, does it happen every time to where Sal reaches out to Sean because I was prospecting to him somehow, some way, with all this stuff that I had going on? Sal's like, hey, Sean, sounds great. Let's go ahead and talk. Does that immediately mean that Sal's going to stay in touch with me on a dime every time I reach out with him? Or is there a chance Sal might go cold on me? Absolutely. Right? Life gets in the way. Business gets in the way. Job gets in the way. Kids get in the way. I mean, look who we're dealing with in the real estate space. We're dealing with families most of the time. It's very, very common that if we're not on a very systematic outreach, they might go cold. And if they go cold and we don't follow up with them, we don't continue to nurture. Victor, you said one of the big things that you're having a trouble, kind of your weak link, is getting them to say anything, yes or no.
Yeah, the ones that are just browsing per se, they know that they're not gonna buy anytime soon, but the ones that are on the fence, those are the ones that I struggle with, showing them the way per se.
So in your prospecting side, right? We're finding people that are, let's say, ready to go, not ready to go, or not quite sure just yet, right? We can throw them into three categories. Well, guess what? The ones that are not ready to go right now, what do you do with them?
So those I already label them, for 12 months or 12 months ahead, so I can touch base with them 12 months from now.
So you're going to wait 12 months before you make any kind of connection with them again.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. The CRM that I'm using, I try to stay in touch with them through email from time to time, but I really don't give them, too much energy.
Liz, if I talked to you today and then you told me, no, I'm not interested, and then 12 months from now I reached out, would you remember me?
I wouldn't remember you, and I would be, yeah, there needs to be a little bit more within there because you don't know when they're going to be ready. And it could have been 3 months, and it could have been, yeah, it just needs to be a little sooner than that. So, yeah.
So having something like a long-term nurture, a long-term follow-up process, right? When we get into engagement, hey, they've engaged with me. We've had a discussion or two. We've talked a little bit. I don't care whether it's one-on-one, Zoom, face-to-face, text message, email, phone call, doesn't matter how, social media messaging. We've had a discussion. We've engaged a little bit. They're not quite ready at this time. Cool, boom. Part of my system is they now need to go into this right here, a long-term nurture sequence. So that maybe once every month, there's a message coming from me. Is it a sales message, Victor? What do you think it is?
No, it's got to come from a place of providing value.
100%. It's a place of providing value from maybe some new things going on in the area, new things going on in the market. It's also new things going on with you. Things that you've done, others that you've helped. Proof that you can help them when they're what? When they're ready. Not selling them, not continually trying to push them, but just enough that keeps Victor front of mind. The name Victor, the brand name, whatever your business name is, if we're going that way. Victor's more personalized on the agent side, right? But if it's on my real estate investment side, it's about keeping that brand name at the top. I say this all the time. In my nurture sequence, let me see if I still have it up. Let me do this.
Well, and Sean, while you're looking for that, with that, by giving them just little driblets of information, let them decide when they don't want to hear from you anymore. Like I went a different way, because you never know when that could be the moment that they need you and you're still there versus I've moved on. Let them decide that.
Totally.
Don't be their decision maker for them.
Totally. And if that loads, we'll come back to it here in a second. I'll just move it over here to see if it loads on its own back there. But I used to say this all the time in our long-term nurture sequences. I don't really care if they actually open it and read it. I'm actually okay with them not reading it as long as they don't what?
They don't unsubscribe, delete, go away.
They don't unsubscribe.
Yeah.
And here's why. I don't care if they delete it. I actually like the fact that they're deleting it. If they don't open it and don't read it, but they also don't unsubscribe because they're not opening it to hit the unsubscribe button, that means one of two things. They're just letting it sit there, or they're actually doing what with it in their inbox?
Oh, filtered.
How many of you guys go, like, first thing you do when you get into your inbox is go through and find all the stuff you really don't care about or don't want to read? and check all the boxes and hit delete. I know I'm not the only one. Now, why? Why after years of being on these people's email lists, years of getting these messages from all these different individuals, why have I not opened it and hit unsubscribe? Why do I continually just hit delete?
Because some point in time, there could be a value there. And it's so funny because I know when I get a random email that I did not subscribe for, that I do go in and unsubscribe. I don't care about freaking nuts and bolts for a Toyota Tundra engine that all of a sudden I'm on. But I don't want to get rid of somebody's little piece of information that I might find a value at some point in time.
100%. Liz is probably the biggest one in this whole entire group that suffers from this disease called FOMO. It's exactly why I won't delete an email. All right. Bob, you know him. How many of you got, how many else follow or know or are on Grant Cardone's email list?
Oh, it's friggin' ridiculous.
How many have been on it and got off of it? You hit unsubscribe. 6.5, 7 years later, I'm still getting his emails. Why? Because there's that one time every couple random months where there's actually something that comes out that catches my eye and I actually open it up and I read it and I'm like, huh, that's pretty interesting. And if I unsubscribe, I won't have that moment again, right? From his emails or his videos. Just like the other day, I hardly ever watch his Facebook Lives. But why have I not gone and unfollowed him and gotten away from him? Because what do you know? A Facebook Live came up the other day. I had a little bit of time. I caught myself watching it. So when I put somebody into, let's say, something like this, a long-term follow-up sequence, and this is one of the dummy accounts, but when I put somebody into a long-term follow-up sequence that's going to kind of go out some time, as long as they don't unsubscribe, I'm happy with it. Why? Because when I get back to this point right here in their process where they told me, hey, Victor, check with me in about 12 months. That's when we're probably going to be ready to sell. When Victor picks up the phone now and says, hey, Gene, this is Victor. We talked a few months ago. I know you weren't ready at that time, but you said you might be ready at this time. The chances that Gene remembers who you are is probably significantly higher than had you not done anything. That make sense? Whether he's read or not read, who cares? As long as he stayed on there. Chances are he probably opened one or two, saw enough value in it, or was like, oh yeah, that's that guy that I said to follow up with us. Let me just keep that there so that when I'm ready, I at least know I can find an email of his to send him an email message back. I'll reply to that at that point, right? The other thing from a nurture standpoint is not just a long-term nurture, but should we have somebody in a nurture sequence the second they start to engage with us?
Absolutely.
Somebody goes to your website, fills out a form, right? You've been doing some prospecting, you've been putting some marketing in front of them, right? All of this stuff over here. They finally take action. They go to your website, they fill out a form. They go to your website, they see a phone number, they decide to text you. They set up a time to talk to you. Should we be able to put them immediately into some sort of a short term or kind of a next step follow-up?
I was going to say there should be a short-term nurture workflow.
So we should have a long-term and a short-term. The short-term is going to be dictated upon how long your sales process is, how long your engagement phase is with them. And at some point, they're either going to move forward in the sales system and you take them out of the short term and put them into nothing or move them to the next phase, or they didn't move on. So then they need to come out of the short term and go into the more long term. And if we actually look at if I were to go back to workflows here, in the snapshot of Leadvault, when I uploaded it for you guys, you've got the home seller nurture, and I just want to show you the final step of it. Once they get to the end of it, it automatically will move them over once this thing loads. So we put them in, they fill out in this case, it's triggered by a form, right? The home seller form, but I could manually put them into this. I could change that trigger. Who cares how they get in there? The idea is that they got in there, but then once they get through this short term,
Oh, boy.
notice it says add to workflow, and it moves them into the long-term nurture. Because if somebody made it all the way to this point, that means they didn't move forward in the sales process with us. Therefore, they need to go into a long-term nurture. Now, something I do on the REI Toolbox side of the house is when somebody books a call with us, which is basically them engaging with us at that point, right? I'm doing prospecting. Once they move forward and they actually book a call with us, that's their way of starting engagement with us. I actually immediately put them into a long-term nurture sequence. But I also have it built where they come out of this long-term nurture sequence the second they move past the engagement phase and become committed. So from the second they start engaging with us, they go into this sequence, and for the next 52 weeks, they're going to get at least one email from me a week. Why do I do that? Because before I even get them on a sales call, before I even get them on a strategy session, I want them already seeing that we provide a lot of value. The first couple emails that come out have zero sales whatsoever to them. It's 100% a buttload of value that tees up what we're going to probably get into talking about on the strategy session. So that by the time they even get on, and I've had it happen where somebody gets on that strategy call and is like, oh yeah, I just watched the podcast episode that you told me about. I didn't tell them about that. The long-term nurture sequence, the first video or the first email suggested, and here's the link, go check this out. Well, going back to sales and marketing alignment, the job of the email is to continue to market, right? It's continuing putting a message in a form of media in front of them, teeing up and supporting the sales side. That make sense? There's one more key component to the engagement side outside of just our follow-up piece. What do you think this final component is in this area? It's not really in an order either. It's just the three biggest ones that I feel when we get into engagement. We've got our CRM, we've got a good follow-up system. What do you think the third one is?
Close.
We're going to get there in a second.
Call to action.
Any other guesses? Eileen, looks like you unmuted.
I don't.
Okay. Your presentation process. Before I can even get them committed, before I can even go to close, I actually have to have a chance to present what it is that I do and how I can what?
Help her, help them.
How I can solve their problem. So in that engagement phase, I need to understand, what is my presentation process? Is it visit the house? Is it on a call? Is it on Zoom? What is it? What is my process? How am I going to present this? For us, I decided I do nothing with sales presenting how REI Toolbox TRC can help anybody unless I'm where?
On a video or live?
On a Zoom call.
Yeah.
I don't do phone calls.
Yeah.
I don't take phone calls to discuss our services. Why?
Because you can show them, and then you can also, you're physically interacting with them. I mean, it's, even though you're not there, you see, you know what's happening.
Yeah,
It's
we're
too easy to
nationwide.
hang up. It's too easy to hang up.
Well, it's not just that it's too easy to hang up, because hopefully, right? Hopefully, if I've done my prospecting right, that by the time they get to this phase with me, it's because they're legitimately interested. And if I've nurtured them through that process, by the time I get them to here to have that presentation, I'm hoping they're not just kicking tires, right? And or that this is going to be a defensive conversation. But for what we do nationally, can I go face to face and sit down with every business owner to talk to them about their digital marketing and website needs?
No, but you can Zoom, which is close to it.
Right, which is why we choose Zoom, right? I can't do phone calls. It's really difficult for me to say, hey, Sal, I'm sitting here looking at this report, and you're currently, here's what your authority score looks like, and here's what you kind of, your trust is like with Google, and here's where you're kind of ranking or not ranking at all, and here's some of the competition that I'm seeing for these type of search phrases, right? It's really hard to have that conversation on the phone because they're just they need to just trust that I'm actually what?
That you know what
No.
you're talking about.
That I'm actually
No.
saying the right stuff, that I'm actually looking at their stuff, not just making it up, right?
It's accurate information, truthful.
But one-on-one on a Zoom call, sharing the screen, pulling that stuff up and putting it in front of their face, especially when we're dealing with some of our bigger clients that are, spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month into their marketing. They want to know that we're legitimately looking at right stuff. Well, take that to real estate. I do stuff back in Ohio. I can't fly back to Ohio and talk to a seller every time we want to look at a property. So what do you think my process is?
Well, you're on a Zoom call, but you have boots on the ground back there and somebody doing some stuff for you too.
It's a combination of both, actually.
Yeah.
It's a combination of, hey, I need some videos or pictures so that I can see from your end. Then we can have the phone conversation because I've at least seen it. But it's also this other aspect where we've got a real estate agent back there that's kind of our boots on the ground, that when we want to look at something, it's, hey, Mandy, here's the address. Go check it out. And a lot of times she'll record a video and send us a video of it so that we can physically see it. So that then when I sit down and I can have a phone conversation at that point with the seller or with the agent or with whoever it is that I'm dealing with, I have a better way of explaining because I've seen what's right there. I see what's real, right? And now I can actually have that discussion. So you have to understand what your presentation process is. When I lived back there, I did nothing with the seller unless we were able to physically meet at the property together. I never went and if a homeowner called us and said, hey, I want you to go take at this property, I don't even live at that one or whatnot, somebody had to meet me there. Why? Because I wanted both of us simultaneously seeing the same thing. Because in that moment, right, I can have that conversation and know that we're both seeing the same thing at the same time and can discuss it. Setting me up better to be able to explain how I help solve their problem. Then hopefully we can move them to the final stage. And I got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to cram through the final part here. Bob, what do you think the final stage is?
The close.
This is our close phase. This is when they finally say what?
Yes.
I do.
Well, that's marriage. We're not getting married. I know marketing is like dating, but we cut it off at a certain point. We never actually go to the marriage. But this is when they finally say yes. Now I've entered my closing stage. And I got a couple key components that I need to have in place to handle the close. The first one is what's my contract process? They say yes, boom, we're going into contracts, getting done at that point. What's that process look like? How does it happen? In the REI side right now, REI Toolbox, it's really simple. We send them to a landing page. It's got our agreements on it. Go ahead and read through it. It's got our terms and conditions on it. And go ahead and fill out this short little form. Once you fill out that form, that's basically you agreeing and committing to saying yes to everything that we've discussed. Boom. Now the next piece. I call it the onboarding. And it could still be considered onboarding in real estate. Because once they've said yes, you've got to onboard them. And what onboarding in real estate is, it's not just getting contracts signed. What else goes into that whole process for closing?
Inspections and
There's probably
Surveys,
other documents that I need to get from them.
surveys, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe there's utility information. I got to start opening up escrow. We got to get this stuff. That, in my opinion, it's no different than I onboard a client into REI Toolbox TRC. But in real estate, we're doing the same thing. We're onboarding them into an opportunity for us. We're onboarding them into our deal system at this point. And then the final component of your sales system, and it's why I have it as a circle with a big old kind of easy flowing aspect. What do you think the final thing that should happen in the close cycle or the close phase? 99% of real estate people never do this.
celebrate.
Nope. I agree you should, but that's not it.
Thank you.
I mean, thank yous are great, but what does a thank you do for me in the business?
Testimonial. Review.
Testimonial referral.
Say that again, Bob.
Referral or a testimonial?
Nope, just the referral. Ask for referral. Immediately after close. Hey, Bob, it was so great being able to help you out. I can't wait for you to be able to, whatever I knew about you, whatever your situation was, right? I hope I never have to work with you again in this capacity, because that would be a bad thing. But I just want to ask, Bob, is there anybody else in your family, in your life, it's your coworkers, anything that you may or may not know about that you think might need or might get some value out of our service as well? What is the worst thing that they can say?
No.
It's how we continue the cycle. Because if they give us a referral, what do you think immediately happens next?
Redo.
Starts all over.
I'm going to prospect that individual. This is a sales system. Prospecting through engagement, through close. Prospect, engage, close. Prospect, engage, close. I have key components or tools or aspects in each one of these. In my prospecting side, I've got a list. I've got a plan. I've got a system to track it. On my engagement side, I've got a way to keep notes up to date with what's going on, the story, the nuances, the pain points that I'm discussing with them. I've got follow-up and nurture sequences. I've got a process on how I'm going to deliver my presentation. I know exactly how I want to handle this. I know if I step away, I can tell Victor exactly, boom, how to handle the engagement phase. And when they say yes, I immediately know, boom, here's how contracts work. Here's how the onboarding process works. And then boom, here's our referral piece. Here's how we close it out and try to pick up one or two to the next component. Thoughts, comments, questions? I know we're a hair over. I got a few extra minutes today. I'll hang on. Thoughts, comments, questions, anything?
I'm intrigued by the entire process. It fits in very closely to the selling cycle that we all went through as salespeople, but there's a lot more involved here that's different because of it's with real estate, especially with the contract process and the onboarding. But you know, the thing too was with the close and with the prospecting all along in the engagement process, you're looking for the hot buttons, the key things that are going to make a difference for the client. You know, what do you want from this? What do you ultimately see this looking like? And you're going to use that in your presentation process to reconfirm everything. That's going to make the close a lot easier.
I mean, we could do a training on each individual component of this because there's a lot to break down in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But we got to start with the system first. I got to know what the system is. Then I can start to put all the components together.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest that this would be more for a longer term type of campaign. So if you compare this relative to just say networking, I'm going to change your 3 components on the left there. Your message is always going to be the same whenever you're talking to. Your market could be anybody. And then you find certain people that fall into that market. Your media is you run your gums or giving them a website or a link or sending them a text or something as the follow-up. And then they would fall into this system that you have on the board in the back. Too fast?
No, where I would say is networking is nothing more than a form of prospecting.
Okay, I'll buy that.
It's a media in my plan. Part of my plan is networking. That's how I'm going to prospect. If I'm going after distressed landlords who have a couple properties or more, they're tired of them, they want to move, they want to get the heck out of there. Okay, well, I'm going to go, part of my prospecting plan is I'm going to go hang out at the landlord association.
Mm-hmm.
And for one thing and one thing only, and that is to network. And I'm going to prospect. And I'm going to look for individuals who are stressed, tired of it, ready to retire, get into discussions, that kind of stuff, right? Which is ultimately just taking them and leading them into my engagement process. I'm going to meet some people. I'm going to probably gain some business cards, or at a minimum, I'm going to gain some contact information from them, right? Name, email, a good phone number from them, even if I have to ask them for it because they don't have business cards. Well, guess what? I'm going to take that, I'm going to dump it into my CRM, and I'm going to take them and I'm going to dump them into a follow-up sequence. And through that follow-up sequence, I'm trying to get it from here to be able to have an opportunity to present my process, to present my solution, how I can solve their pain and their problem. Does that make sense, Bob?
Absolutely, because you got your engagement with your landlord's ass, so he has a presentation process.
Correct.
Got it. I'm just following the arrows.
Anybody else? Thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, just, I guess, comment from me, Sean, is that, so the thing about this is, I'm sure we can all agree, we encounter this all the time. Because with me, I have departments within my company, well, not my real estate company, but the company I work for, where there is specific departments that handle this. You have a marketing department, you have a sales department, and they each have their individual task. And it's exactly how you're explaining it. Difference is here, I am the whole department, right? I am marketing, sales, acquisitions, disposition, I'm all of that. So for me, it would be helpful to have this in a more like phase gate approach, and you have two different buckets. Because as I was writing down what you were saying, I mean, I can see where, okay, I have a CRM, but what was missing? If you look 2 steps ahead, the other two things that you listed, I may not have been focusing on one part of the prospecting, which is the CRM part, but there's the other things ahead of it that I gotta also kind of like juggle at the same time. So for me, it would be helpful to have buckets and a more of a phase gate approach where I know that, okay, I'm here. Now I can move on to the next step of it, or I'm at short term. Now I gotta determine how long that short term nurture will be, when the cutoff point is to move them into long term nurture, and then follow that up. I don't know, 4 to 6 months down the road.
Can I be honest with you, Gene?
Sure.
You're overcomplicating it.
Am I?
You are. Currently, right now, and here's why I say that. Currently, right now in our business, I do this by myself. I do this by myself. I do this by myself. It isn't until we get to right here, the onboarding process, to where I actually hand that stuff off.
Well, you've
I
already
run-
got that structure. That's what I was getting at in the beginning, where I said getting everything down to a structured approach. You've already got that down packed, but at least I'll speak for myself. I don't have it all fully. I don't have all the everything clicking all at the same, to that point yet. So I'm kind of looking at it like I got to do all of this at once, and it's not.
No,
something I think
you
we're gonna
absolutely,
tackle,
you could not do it all at once.
right.
I have all of this in place because for 3 years I've been building this for us. When it first started, I nailed down this right here. I knew the number one most important thing to make sure business can survive is right here. Prospecting. If I was not actively prospecting every single day of the week, every week out of the month, every month out of the year, we would not go anywhere. So I nailed down what my prospecting side of this system looked like. How was I going to do it? What type of lists was I going to pull? Who was I going after? What was my plan? What type of outreaches was I going to use? What was I going to do to prospect? And then what did that CRM look like? LeadVault's the 3rd CRM that we've used in our company. Because as the system evolved, I started seeing what I wished I had, what I didn't already have. And I continued to evolve that and build that out. Once this was dialed in, then I was able to nail down the engagement side. I didn't have long-term and short-term nurture sequences right out of the gate, but that was one of the first things that I did build out. When I was prospecting enough that I couldn't physically keep up with the follow-ups and the reminders and the touch bases and the check-ins and all that kind of stuff, right? That I was like, you know what, I need to stop for a second and I just need to build out a nurture sequence so that when somebody says this, boom, I can just dump them into it. When somebody's not quite ready right now, I can just dump them into it. And I at least know they're not getting forgotten about. And then I eventually built it to where it was like, okay, let me dial in what's my process to present. Early on, I was like Bob. I was the Bob method. I'd wing it. Oh, you want to talk today? Great, let's just talk today. Now my presentation process is, you want to know how we can help you? Schedule a time on my calendar. Here's the times that are allowed for it. It's going to be on Zoom. It's going to be 30 minutes long. And even then, this part, the closing side, the closing side of it, we didn't nail this down until just recently. I just built the whole automated closing sequence for us about 3.5, 4 months ago. Because this side of the sales system, our close section, was kind of chaotic. And I knew we needed to have something repeatable on that side. It couldn't just be, oh, somebody said yes, and it was off to the winds on how that would actually get done. So my suggestion, Gene, would be pick one section and build it first and nail that down. And some of you guys, some of the areas of this are really easy, whereas other sides are a little bit more complicated. So knock out the easy ones first. Get that out of the way. Get consistent with that. Then you can bring in the other when it makes sense.
Got it.
Go ahead. Did you have something, Gene?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you. Got it.
Awesome. Anything else from anybody? Okay, with that, I'm gonna